Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install a remote starter. I got the cool start from CrimeStopper, the RS4 G5. I'm going to be installing it on a 2001 Toyota Corolla. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is removing the plastic all around the steering column here. There's a Phillips underneath, and then there's some Phillips behind the steering wheel. You're going to have to put the key in and unlock it so that you can get to the Phillips behind the steering wheel. So these two upper screws, as you can see I took one out. You have to turn the steering wheel all the way to the side. I have to get that other one out as well to get these plastic pieces off. So after getting this bottom plastic piece removed, next what I'm going to be doing is taking off this plastic piece. I'm not entirely sure that I need to. It looks like I do, because I know I need to get a ground on one of my wires, and I don't think there's very good grounds on here. So I'm going to remove this. To take it off, you have to remove this plastic piece from here. There's one little bolt right here, but my piece was missing it. So then you just pop this up and it pops right off. And then there's two 10mm bolts on both sides here to get this big old plastic piece off. So I ended up removing the metal plate here as well. It was just two right here, two bolts, 10mm right there. And then right here it exposes quite a bit more. And after searching further into this, as you can see, I actually already had an aftermarket lock kit on it. This was originally my wife's car. And so I just thought that it was factory, but it's actually a car kit is the name of the brand. So anyways, it took quite a bit of searching, but I finally found probably the best site for this vehicle and any vehicle is the Bulldog site, because they have all the wiring diagrams. Make it really simple. I'll have a cutaway of that. So what I'm going to do, and it's actually really nice for me, but the site still gives all of the wiring that you'll need. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut each of these wires and reattach them to the new set of wires that I need to do, rather than trying to cut in. See, there's a couple of options of how you can do it. As you can see, this was actually professionally installed. But another way is you can cut away some of the wire and then stick the new wire through where you've cut away, twisted it around, and then use some electrical tape here and wrap it around it to seal it off. And then they use zip ties is probably the best idea I've seen at the ends of the electrical tape. But for me, all I have to do is cut these, and then I'm gonna just use these I don't even know what they're called, but anyways, these connectors that just screw right on, make it real easy. So I'm gonna do that, start connecting all these, and get to it. So this is a picture that I pulled off of bulldogsecurity.com website. It's actually a really good diagram of all of the electronics that you're going to need to know. It has all of, your 12-volt constant, your starters, ignitions, the lock, unlock, and it gives you whether they're positive or negative. Like all of the starter and ignitions are all positive. I'll talk a little bit about that and to why that's important. You have to make sure that as you're matching everything, according to your system, if it needs to be a positive charge, then you need to make sure that the wire that you're cutting into off of this diagram is positive, and vice versa. If it's a negative charge that you need, it needs to be a negative charge off of this diagram. This is a really good diagram, and it also shows you where the wires can be found. If you just remove the plastic from around the steering column, you can see all of these wires at either the ignition switch harness or let's see where else, the steering column harness, and you just follow it down to where there's a better spot to cut into it, as I'll show you in a bit. I do have to make one correction though for the power lock and unlock. For the power lock, it shows that it's a blue and black wire at the white plug on the right side of the fuse box. It's actually a blue and white wire. The only reason I know is because my car was previously wired for that, and it was plugged into a blue and white wire and a green and white wire, so I figured those two had to be the lock and unlock. And when I wired it that way, it actually wired correctly, and the lock and unlock feature worked perfectly for me now. So a big trick with this project is, after following all of the diagrams on that Bulldog page, is following the wires down. So this is up here is the accessory wire, I can't remember what they call it, but anyways, it's for the horn. It's green and red, and I just followed it all the way down, took back some of this, I pulled it out, and when I test it, it makes the horn honk. So not all of them are going to go to my old one. I'm going to have to splice into this one and attach my new wire to it. So it took quite a bit of work, but with a knife I was able to cut the plastic back off of the wire so that I can make a hole, and then I'm just going to stick the new wire basically straight through there, tie it around a couple times. Well, first I'll strip this edge off so that it's bare wire on bare wire. I would suggest I might try this on my next wire. That took so long to strip that back that I may just cut the wire, strip it back, and then just screw them together with the new wire with one of these. This one seemed like it didn't have enough room to do that, so I didn't, but I may just do that on the next one if I have enough wire to be able to do that. So I've gotten to the brake wire. That's the wire that once you put your foot on the brake, that turns off the automatic starter so that you can drive it without having to stop the engine and then restart it with the key. It's way up here, connected to the brake pedal. So I'm gonna have to cut that green and white wire on it. I may actually add a little extension. This one's gonna be pretty annoying to do. This one was a bit of a nightmare, and this should be the worst one that you have to connect. So what I essentially did was I cut that green and white wire, and I added an extra little amount, that little pink wire, and I connected, mine's a purple wire for the brake light so that it cuts off the remote starter. What I actually had to do was have my wife do it because my hands are too big to fit through this hole here and then underneath. What she actually did was we laid the driver's seat all the way back, and then she was able to basically lay her head down by the foot pedal here. So that should be the hardest one that you have to deal with. So for that brake wire, I'd actually recommend going and finding one of these. That would have saved me a lot of hassle. It just clips right onto the wire, and then you can plug in whatever wire you need, and it crimps right in. So it'd be worth looking into that and finding those. I couldn't find any at your standard Ace or Walmart, but it'd definitely be worth looking into before doing this project. All right, so a lot of these starter systems come with a hood like backup system, so that when you have your hood open, you can't accidentally push the starter button and start the vehicle, which I obviously do quite a bit of working on my own cars, so this one's kind of important to me that it doesn't start on me. So anyways, right here is where the steering linkage goes, and up in here is where you can break through the firewall. There's some rubber right there where all the other wires go through, and I'm going to pull that wire through and connect it under the hood for a hood pin. What I did was I hooked it onto a zip tie, had a zip tie on my screwdriver, and then I'm poking it through. I accidentally poked through the rubber. I didn't really want to do that, but it's too late now. So sorry about the wind, but this is where that wire is going to pull through. As you can see, I attached it onto a zip tie to the screwdriver and poked the screwdriver through. So I'm just going to pull it through. I'm just going to run it all along here. I'm going to put it kind of close to the battery, not touching the battery. But so this is the little pin thing that I'm going to screw into here, so that when this trigger is down, you can remote start it. But when it's up, because the hood is up and you're working on the car, you can't accidentally start it. So I probably failed to mention that I actually used the 6-pin one with these giant gauge wires for the remote start. The online Bulldog site was saying that my ignition and my starter were positively charged, where this CrimeStopper system had a 3-plug one for the remote start, but they were saying that they're all negatively charged. I didn't really want to mess up my system, so I just used the 6-pin. It's a little extra work, but when I plugged everything in, it all worked. Both the remote start and the lock and unlock functions, those were the main things that I wanted for this. So what I did was I plugged everything in, make sure it worked. I unplugged it, and I went through and I bound everything up, because you have a ton of extra wire. I actually had quite a few wires I didn't use, plus the wire you did use had a ton of extra length, and so I just wrapped them all together and zip tied them, all of them. So what I'll do is I'll plug the box in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back up in here, and I'm going to zip tie it to that big old wire there, my box, just so that it's out of the way and I'll never kick it or step on it while I'm using the gas and the brake. So this next part is where you just got to get creative with these zip ties. It wouldn't hurt to have a huge old bag of zip ties on hand pretty much at all times for any project. So anyways, what I did was, I zipped them all together, and then I zipped them there onto the actual car wiring. So you got to get pretty creative. I had to get this part done. Mine came with an antenna that unfortunately is a plug-in, which is really annoying. So it's supposed to go on the windshield. What I'm going to do is right here, if you take a flathead, you can see it from underneath by the fuse box, but you can kind of get a little bit of separation there for the wires to squeeze through. So that's what I'm going to work on next. So I was able to squeeze that through. Again, I hooked another zip tie to it and poked the zip tie through because the wire isn't really strong enough to push straight through. So anyways, I did another test run just to make sure that everything starts, the lock, the unlock, the start the engine, and it all works. So since this is all good, all that's left to do is to put all the paneling back. This was a little more than I thought it would be, but still a heck of a lot easier and cheaper than taking it and paying someone a couple $100s to do it for you. So thanks for watching, and hopefully this was helpful.